I got a call late last night. My wife has passed away. And yeah, it was self-induced, and it was up in North Carolina. And we're going to have a funeral for her next Sunday here at 3 p.m. And so it's all I can, I'm just kind of going on adrenaline right now. So y'all pray for me and my kids and everybody. And she wasn't, y'all knew that she wasn't well mentally, and that she needed her medicine that was hard to get to her. And so I'm sure there'll be more details to come, but just keep our family in your prayers. And I'm going to let Pastor Randall, Bishop, he can pray. I'll get him a microphone, he'll pray out. And if you have anything you want to share as well.
Welcome back, guys. I trust you've been staying safe. Today's true crime story is coming to you from South Carolina in the United States of America, where a pastor, who is also a husband, has lost his wife, but is claiming that his wife passed at her own hands. But then, at the same time, the family of his wife are urging the police to deeply investigate her passing because it seems there's a suspicion of foul play. Now, this case is between Pastor John Paul Miller and his wife, Mica Miller, who passed away on the 27th of April 2024. Now, this story is still a developing story, and I'm going to walk you through the circumstances as has played out so far. So, this South Carolina pastor, John Miller, is claiming that his wife passed at her own hands, and that this was 6 months after they had been having some issues. But it turns out that actually this is just 6 months after she had actually filed for divorce. And Mica Miller, his wife, who is actually his second wife, was getting ready to divorce him. But then she was found to have suffered a fatal GSW to the head, and that was it for her. Now, her husband, at the center of the issue, Pastor John Paul Miller, is the pastor at the Solid Rock Church in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. And as you saw in the beginning of this video, he broke the news of her passing during a recent church service after asking his congregation not to discuss it inside the church. Let me pause there and try and get a read on why he would do that. First of all, his wife, or his late wife, Mica Miller, was active in this church. There are videos of her actually helping with church service, singing and all, praises and all. So the church knew her. She was part of the church. Why then would you want to tell them about her passing but tell them not to discuss it in the church? What is wrong with they discussing it in the church? I don't get it. More so, even if she wasn't part of the church, she's still your wife. You are the pastor of the church. Once you are informing the congregation, I think that is you opening the door for people to possibly discuss or even commiserate with you whilst in church because you informed them whilst they were in church. That is my 2 cents. I'm not trying to be insensitive, but I'm just trying to wrap my head around the possible reasons for which he would tell the church congregation about her passing, but then go on to let them know that they shouldn't discuss it in church. Let me know if there's something that you think is a good reason for this, which I am missing. I would really appreciate that. Just let me know in the comment section. But then, just to quote this pastor, this was what he told them. I got a call late last night that my wife has passed away. It was self-induced and it was up in North Carolina. And y'all pray for me and my kids and everybody. You all knew she wasn't well mentally and she needed medicine. That was hard to get to her. I'm sure there will be more details to come, but keep her family in your prayers. Now, I don't know. I'm not trying to insinuate anything, but some of these statements are not sitting well with me. Like, for example, him saying that they all know that she wasn't well mentally. Why do you have to say that? If they all know, why do you have to repeat it? That's my question. If they all know, then there's no need for you to repeat it back to them. And in fact, I think that out of respect for her memory, you don't need to say such things, especially if you are trying to say it to people who already know. This is giving me some funny vibes, and this is not me trying to be insensitive or insinuate anything, but I think that some of these statements were unnecessary. He could have just subtly told them about what had happened to her and then ask for their prayers for himself, his kids, and the family of his late wife, and that should have been it. Well, that is me. But then friends of the pastor's late second wife were taken aback over Mica Miller's passing and urged officials to look deep into the issue. And by this, I am thinking that they are suspecting there could be more to it. Probably it wasn't self-induced, but maybe there's foul play somewhere. Now, they are saying that it has to be looked into deeply because there's got to be some accountability here. And exactly what I said, accountability here in terms of what? Possibly, per my insinuation, in terms of foul play. Because if it was self-induced, the only person to be held accountable probably is the one who is already gone. Or unless they are still trying to insinuate that it was self-induced though, but she was sort of forced to that point by a situation, I don't know. Or they are just saying it wasn't self-induced. But either way, they are asking the police to dig deeply. And I think rightly so, irrespective of whatever their feelings are, I think that any person needs to be looked deeply into by the police just so they are sure of what is and what isn't. And more so, they've also revealed that there was no indication of the community being in danger and that Mica Miller allegedly had struggled with such a thing before where she almost unalived herself, and that each time they would help her through it and take her to the doctor, and then they'll go through it and everything was fine. And that she even gave some few testimonies at the church, and they have videos of it. So this is coming from her husband. And if that is true, then definitely there would have to be medical records to prove what he's saying. He's talking about videos, there would have to be video records, but all that in itself does not necessarily prove that the final thing was self-induced, because all that could be true, but then the final thing may not possibly or necessarily be self-induced. Somebody could take advantage of this medical history and make it look like it was self-induced in her passing, whereas there's foul play. So for me, I think that the police has a lot of work to do. Now, initially the case was dismissed, but then a few days later, John Paul, the pastor, also filed for a separate divorce from his wife because it seems that they were having problems. Now, the pastor claims that he and his wife spent every night together for hours just talking and talking and talking. But then Mica Miller, his now deceased wife, actually filed for divorce from him in October 2023, and this is according to court records. Now, the case for this divorce was dismissed in February of 2024, but then a few days later, Pastor John Paul Miller would go ahead to file for separate support and maintenance, seeking financial support as the couple were still legally married. And then fast forward, in April, Mica Miller, now deceased, also filed for separate support and maintenance with a hearing scheduled for the 5th of June. So definitely there was something going on, and her family is seeking justice for Mica as they claim a no contact order and a divorce was filed days before her passing. And as such, probably there's something that the police need to look into. Now, some of them are going on to say that there's a lot of talk already going on, so they just want to set the record straight, and that Mica Miller has passed on, but then they are urging the public not to listen to false stories being shared about her. Now my question is, what are those false stories? Do they include the alleged mental challenges? They go on to say that Mica Miller was a God-fearing and joyful, loving woman who did not deserve what she endured. Now the question is, what did she endure? So these things are giving me signals of a possible tension going on between her surviving husband, Pastor John Paul Miller, and the family of his late wife, Mica Miller. And sometimes in such instances, you might not know what is actually fact and what is actually just emotions being blown out of proportion, probably until the police conclude their investigation. Now, the family goes on to say that if you hear anything about this from any other than her family, please question it. Reach out to her siblings or parents. And this statement is deep. If you hear anything about this from anyone other than her family, please question it. Reach out to her siblings and parents. They didn't add that you can also reach out to her husband. That in itself tells me there's some tension. They go on to talk about keeping their family in our prayers, and if you have any information that needs to be shared, please contact any of them. They also ask that the society or the public respect them in this time and honor her memory with joy that she is no longer suffering. And the question is, what was she suffering? What was she suffering? So I believe that all these things are living question marks, and I believe there are interesting days ahead on this Mica Miller case. Some people are actually suspecting that Pastor John Paul Miller probably might have a hand in what happened to her, although there is no evidence to it as far as my research has shown me. Some people are also of the view that they may have had issues, but it does not necessarily mean he is responsible for what happened to her, especially when it is suspected that it was self-induced, although the police haven't also come out to officially proclaim that it was self-induced. Now, Mica Miller, during her time alive and at the church, was a worship leader, a graphics designer, a youth leader, a women's ministry leader, and a pastor's assistant. But then, this is what I would say on this before I continue. I think that there's one thing seeing people looking happy, and there's another thing they actually being happy. It can happen anywhere. Sometimes you might see people in church, or you might see people going about their lives smiling and all, and you think they are so happy. You probably have it worse. But I tell you, people are dealing with things. People are dealing with a lot of things, and whatever you are dealing with, I'm here to let you know you are not alone. Try and share the burden. Don't let things weigh you down to the point that you begin to consider certain options as possible alternatives, which may not be the best. No matter how gloomy things are, there is always going to be tomorrow, and you have a chance to make the best of it. That is my little advice to chip in on this, just in case you are listening to me and you are dealing with something. But as it stands now, Mica Miller is deceased. Investigations are still ongoing. I'm waiting to hear something official from the police. But as far as her husband, Pastor John Paul Miller, is concerned, it hasn't been officially said, but it looks like some people are looking at him three ways as possibly being responsible in one way or the other for what happened to his wife. But the question is that really the case? Is he really responsible, or he's just caught in a position, an unfortunate one of course, in being the husband of a woman who might have done something to herself, devoid of him being responsible or accountable for it? This is a very tricky case, but I'm trusting the police to do as they always do and get to the bottom of it, expose whatever is in there, and reveal the truth. Until then, my heartfelt condolences goes out to the family of Mica Miller. I wish them strength, peace in these difficult times. I wish her a peaceful rest. I don't know anything about her actually, but in my research, by what I saw, she seems like a nice soul. But then, Her husband also seems like a nice person, just that some of his utterances made in announcing her passing do not sit well with me. But I also wish him my condolences because that is his wife. And if he's not guilty of the suspicions being leveled against him, then definitely he's going through a lot. And I think that he also needs our prayers just as much as the family of Mica Miller also do. Now, Mica Miller is survived by 5 stepchildren with this pastor who has had a first wife prior to Mica Miller. So this is not his first rodeo with marriage. And I also believe that the fact that he is a pastor does not also mean that he's above suspicion. That is one thing I'll state clearly, and I'm expecting the police to also observe that as a fact. Nobody is above suspicion, pastor or no pastor. That is also not for me to say he is a suspect in anything. I'm just saying, I'm just putting it out there. So just go to the comment section, just type RIP Mica and commiserate with her family and loved ones in these difficult times. I'll be following these keys as and when updates are due. You know I'm going to bring it to you. But again, if you are dealing with something, please seek help, share the burden, say a word of prayer, open yourself up, let in some happiness, and know that no matter how gloomy things are looking, definitely tomorrow is another day for you to have a chance at doing better. Subscribe to the channel if you are yet to do so. I'll catch you on the next one. Stay safe out there. Watch any of our videos and leave your comments in the comment section. Peace.